Discover how a reserved woman uncovered hidden symptoms that saved a billionaire CEO's life. Claire's heart thrummed in her chest as she prepared for another long shift at Indianapolis Community Hospital. She often felt invisible, a mere shadow in the presence of her loud, brash colleagues. But tonight held a promise of something different. The soft buzz of an incoming patient's chart caught her attention, sending a jolt of adrenaline through her veins. Andrew, the billionaire CEO, was here for a routine checkup. She had read about him, handsome, charismatic, a mogul of tech. But as she glanced at his photo on the chart, something felt off. As she walked towards the exam room, images of her father's disapproving gaze haunted her mind. A nurse? You could do better, Claire, he would always say, belittling her choice, dismissing her passion as trivial. Her stomach twisted with unease as she reminded herself why she cared. Why had she chosen nursing if not for the small victories of her patients? Yet, with every step, the familiar feeling of insignificance unfurled inside her, making her doubt her worth. The moment she entered the room, Andrew's magnetic presence filled the air. Yet she sensed a creeping exhaustion behind those designer suits. His smile didn't reach his eyes, those deep-set shadows revealing an untold story. Claire tried to focus, to tease out the symptoms buried beneath the weight of his name, but her thoughts spiraled back to her father's voice, relentless and chiding. Could she ever be enough? An unsettling shift coursed through her as she reviewed Andrew's medical history. He barely spoke, sharing only the bare minimum. Was this man beyond her reach? Suddenly, in the midst of her racing thoughts, he collapsed to the ground. Panic engulfed the room as alarms blared, her body frozen for a heartbeat before instinct kicked in. Nurses and doctors surged around her, frantic with urgency, but somewhere, buried deep within, her instincts screamed louder. "Claire, help us stabilize him." The words ignited her adrenaline, pushing her through the chaos. As she knelt beside Andrew, her hands trembling, she recalled her training. With unwavering focus, her mind began to piece together his symptoms, ones that seemed to go unnoticed by others. But like icy water dousing her courage, a thought emerged. Were her insights valued, or simply overshadowed by the cacophony of corporate might? The atmosphere crackled with tension, an unyielding pressure to conform to a sanitized narrative. Yet she yearned to unveil the deep-rooted issues threatening Andrew's health. In that moment, that tug-of-war with her desire for recognition and the compelling urge to protect resonated painfully within her. The anger of inadequacy collided with her determination to fight for his life, the stakes of both their worlds hanging in the balance. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Claire struggled to assert herself, the corporate team circled like sharks, eager to sanitize Andrew's plight. Could she, a mere nurse in a sea of suits, risk everything for his truth? Layered above her choices was the specter of her father, whose voice echoed ever louder, taunting her fragility. Each second burned as doubts and fears undermined her bravery. And she faced the ultimate question. Was success worth sacrificing her integrity? Tension rose, the air thick and electric, as Claire stood on the precipice, one step away from discovering not only Andrew's hidden struggles but her own fractured sense of self. The line between saving a life and defending her own worth loomed ominously large. In this chaotic swirl, two opposing stories clashed, both teetering on the edge of realization. Claire's breath caught as she hovered over Andrew, his body still sprawled motionless on the floor. The alarms clanged in a frenzied rhythm, echoing her racing heart. Every instinct within her screamed to take charge, yet the cacophony of her surroundings felt like a chain binding her to a stereotype, the quiet nurse, overshadowed by authority. The surrounding chaos faded as her focus honed in on Andrew's condition. Nurses shouted out commands, doctors barked directives. Claire felt herself teetering on the edge between participation and observation. This was not just another medical emergency. This was her chance to step into the light, to redefine her potential amidst the storm. Despite the overwhelming noise, it was as though time stood still. She recalled the textbooks, the simulations, and the fleeting moments that had built her resolve. "Get the crash cart," another nurse ordered, her voice breaking through Claire's thoughts. It was a jolt back to reality, and with it came a fierce determination. Andrew needed more than a team of skilled hands. He required a vigilant mind attuned to recognize the unseen. For a heartbeat, indecision lingered. She could stay back and let them handle it, allowing her to retreat into the familiar shadows, the safe space where her father's voice couldn't reach. But what would that choice say about her? Refusing to back down this time, Claire initiated a mental shift. Andrew had vulnerabilities buried beneath his corporate shield. She had the platform to unpack them. "Wait!" Claire shouted, surprising herself with her volume. All eyes turned to her, the shock palpable in the air. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her, draping her in newfound confidence. "He's experiencing syncope. There's something deeper to investigate here. His chart has indications of stress-related conditions. We can't just revive him without understanding the cause." The senior physician's gaze narrowed, uncertainty flickering behind his authoritative facade. "You're suggesting we dig into his psychological state during a crisis?" "Yes," Claire asserted, her voice steady. "He doesn't fit the mold of the usual patient. There are symptoms we can't ignore. Let's check for pre-existing conditions that may have led to this." Each moment felt like a gamble, tension straining between Claire and the corporate entity now assessing her. But a flicker in Andrew's eyes strengthened her resolve. He may not have known her, but she knew something about him now. A shared vulnerability in the face of crisis. "I'll take lead on this," she continued, her nerves now fueled by determination. "Let's check medication interactions while we stabilize him. His health challenges go beyond just physical ailments. We must address them holistically." As the team reluctantly fell into sync with Claire's directive, she felt the weight lift. This was not merely a battle for Andrew's life. It was a fight for her own validation. Each command she issued, every assertion of her knowledge, chipped away at the chains of doubt that her father had forged within her. Amid the flurry of activity, her heart swelled as she witnessed the skill and precision with which they worked together, a collective unit reborn from chaos. The medical world she had always seen as imposing now felt more inclusive, where her insights could trump authority if guided by conviction. But just as relief began to wash over her, Andrew's condition took a drastic turn. An ashen pallor enveloped his face as he fought for a breath. Claire's focus narrowed again, panic threatening to swallow her whole. She hadn't just climbed from the depths of doubt. She was now in the fray, poised on the brink of both her triumph and potential despair. In that charged moment, Claire turned toward Andrew, determined to grasp every fragment of his strength. Here was her chance, not just to save a life, but to reclaim her own narrative. Was she capable of reshaping her identity based on strength instead of insecurity? As the moment hung in the balance, a thought pierced her growing clarity. What if this was the turning point, not just for Andrew, but for herself? Just then, amid the urgency and noise, a chilling detail emerged, a new symptom that was wholly unexpected. Claire's breath quickened as she connected the dots, realizing she had stumbled upon a revelation that could shift everything. Would her discovery save Andrew, or would it expose the depths of her own unresolved fears? Claire leaned closer, her gaze locked on the monitors flickering beside Andrew. His heartbeat pulsed erratically, a frantic rhythm that echoed the turmoil within her. This was her moment. The chilling detail she had unearthed was a marker, a threshold she hadn't anticipated crossing. The revelation had roots that intertwined between the medical and the personal, yet now it all converged into a singularity of purpose. "Low potassium," she murmured, piecing together the connection. It could explain the syncope, and if there are underlying issues, electrolyte imbalance might be just one piece of the puzzle. The realization struck her, not just as a diagnosis, but as a pinprick of light piercing through her haze of doubt. The atmosphere shifted as the medical team resumed their coordinated efforts. Claire was no longer just a voice in the din. She had carved a niche for herself, challenging the norms that often boxed her into submission. Yet she was acutely aware that with each second, she was risking everything. What if her instinct was wrong? What if her conjectures led them astray? The fear clawed at her, but it was eclipsed by a newfound clarity. "Let's draw blood to check his potassium levels," Claire instructed, a greater confidence swelling within. She caught the eye of a nurse, one she previously viewed as formidable. Instead of intimidation, she saw recognition, a flicker of respect that signaled her command had been acknowledged. As they continued their work, Claire's mind raced through what lay ahead. This situation was not merely a professional peak. It was a crucible for personal growth. The medical domain she had long navigated with hesitancy was transforming into an arena of battle where each decision could catalyze a change not just for Andrew, but for herself. "Focus on the immediate," she reminded herself, rallying her thoughts back to Andrew. This pivotal moment was not just about his survival, but also about her evolution as a nurse. A call to identify the unseen connections between the mind and body. Something she had studied but had never fully put to practice. One of the doctors approached, skepticism etched on his face, doubt that turned to scrutiny. "You really believe stress could be influencing both his physical and mental state?" "Yes," Claire replied firmly, "but we need to assess his medication as well. The combination can lead to these kinds of reactions." This wasn't just a plea. It was a proclamation of her knowledge, a testament to her capability. The vibe in the room shifted. Claire noted the deep breaths her colleagues took as they mulled over her suggestion, the energy palpable yet charged with an air of skepticism. A dam of tradition was beginning to crack, her influence making ripples. Their eyes, once cast upon her with disbelief, now reflected an unspoken acknowledgement. It was as if they were witnessing her metamorphosis. She was emerging from the shroud of self-doubt, on the verge of claiming her right to belong in this space of authority. But the shadows of her past loomed. Could she really shed that part of her once and for all? The stakes were not just Andrew's health, but also her identity, a tightrope walk between self-doubt and self-actualization. In the momentary lull as they awaited Andrew's blood results, Claire's mind turned to her father's disapproving critiques, echoes of a childhood spent in his shadow. This time would be different. She would prove not just to them but to herself that she was beyond the label of just a nurse. A technician entered with the blood results, her smooth smile replaced by a frown that jolted Claire into immediate alertness. "There's a significant imbalance in his electrolytes. Potassium levels dangerously low. We need to act fast." With the weight of newfound responsibility thrumming in her chest, Claire was acutely aware. This was more than a crisis for Andrew. It was the gateway for her transformation. As panic flared anew, Claire's determination hardened. Would she be able to navigate this escalation not only to save Andrew's life, but also to secure her own place as a respected voice in the medical field? As she directed the team into motion to address the crisis, a thought pierced her racing mind. Was it enough to simply act, or would this moment finally catalyze her ascent into the self-assured woman she longed to become? The intensity knitted with an unsettling anticipation hung in the air. Claire was teetering on the edge of that pivotal choice, where self-discovery collided with the need for action. Would her choices echo in the chambers of her self-worth, or would they leak back into the shadows of doubt? The room exploded into activity. Nurses rushed to gather supplies while doctors called for emergency protocols. Claire found herself at the center of the whirlwind, a navigator amid chaos, and as decisions were made rapidly around her, she clung to her clarity. Each request she made to the team came out more assertively than the last. "Start an IV for potassium replacement," she commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. There was a momentary pause, the air thick with expectation. Then, acknowledgement rippled through the team. As they prepped the IV, Claire felt a wave of purpose wash over her. This was no longer a mere theory. She was orchestrating a tangible outcome. Andrew's life hung in delicate balance, and she would champion his survival. Every task she issued seemed to reframe her role not just as a nurse, but as a decisive leader in a pivotal moment. But with each heartbeat of urgency, another wave of self-doubt crashed over her. Questions clawed at her consciousness. Had she been too impulsive in her decisions? What if her assertions failed to bring the resolve they desperately needed? Yet her thoughts were laced with a determination that pushed the doubts to the periphery. She could no longer afford to waver. "Let's monitor his rhythm closely after administering the potassium," she advised, recognizing that every second mattered. The metabolic effects surged around her, and so did the realization that she was not only acting, but also evolving intricately with each choice she made. As the IV drip began, she turned to offer reassurances to Andrew, whispering encouragements, her confidence brushing against the mirrors of her past. They clashed against the reflections of her father's discontent, moments where he insisted that the world required stronger wills than her own. Yet here she stood, wielding her voice where others had silenced it before. In his frailty, Andrew served as a mirror of her potential. Andrew's vital signs steadied, and the chaos began to coalesce into a focused effort, the team now moving fluidly as though choreographed. They were no longer merely colleagues. They were a cooperative force led by a woman shedding the remnants of doubt. Claire's newfound assertiveness rang in stark relief against the hesitation she had come to resent. "What just happened?" one of the nurses asked Claire, curiosity mingling with respect. "I saw an opportunity to intervene based on what I knew, and I acted on it," Claire answered, the truth resonating within her. A truth forged through years of study, experience, and waiting for a moment just like this. It felt good to have her knowledge celebrated, as though she had opened a hidden door in the walls of her past. Their collaboration sparked an atmosphere of engagement and curiosity, where previously there had been skepticism. Claire reveled in the conversations, the brainstorming of next steps, marking a clear shift in her perception. In contributing her input, she was reaffirming both her professional identity and her personal awakening. But just as the tension began to ease, an unsettling shift caught her attention. Andrew's heart rate spiked again, and Claire felt a pressure resume at the edge of her awareness. Was there something hidden beneath the surface? A deeper issue flaring back up. "Get a cardiac ultrasound ready," she said, resolve sharpening her voice. The team met her gaze, recognizing the urgency in her tone. This wasn't just about reacting to the immediate crisis anymore. It was about probing deeper to uncover what else lay concealed. Each passing moment layered on the significance of her past decisions and the urgency of her current circumstances. With every heartbeat, Claire could feel her resolve being tested yet again, the shadows of her doubt threatening to pierce through the confidence she had fought for. Would her evolution resist the mounting pressure, or would she falter in the face of uncertainty? As the ultrasound machine began to power up, Claire fixed her attention on Andrew, silently vowing that whatever the outcome, this moment of truth would define her trajectory. The tension built, uncertainty looming over her awakening. Was she prepared to face the shadows beneath the surface, not only of Andrew's condition, but of her own insecurities? The reality charged with possibility simmered in the charged air as she stepped into the unknown. But facing these challenges could mean more than professional recognition. It could unveil the depths of her potential. As she prepared to confront the coming storm, Claire understood that choices had consequences, her destiny now tied to Andrew's fate. Would this revelation catapult her into the realm of self-actualization she had long sought, or would it plunge her back into the emotional abyss from which she had begun to emerge? The ultrasound machine whirred to life, its mechanical hum blending with the urgent atmosphere of the room. Claire positioned herself at Andrew's side, focusing intently as the technician maneuvered the transducer over his chest. The urgency shifted into a precise scientific observation. In that moment, the chaos outside seemed to fade, replaced by the clinical rhythm of beeping heart monitors and the soft swish of gel being applied. "Can you zoom in on the left atrium?" Claire asked, her voice clear yet controlled. The technician raised an eyebrow, acknowledging her assertiveness with a nod and a swift adjustment to the machine. Claire's heart raced in rhythm with the rapid beeps from the monitor. Each thud of his compromised heart felt personal, echoing inside her as her mind raced through her medical training and the protocols she had studied. "Doesn't matter how confident I feel. Doubt can lurk in the shadows," she thought, reflecting on every moment of indecision that had ever plagued her. Here she stood, no longer a passive participant. This was her theater. For the first time, she truly understood the weight of responsibility it meant to be the one holding the reins, not simply following orders, but leading the charge. "His left atrial dimensions are off," the technician said, pulling Claire back into the moment. Andrew's heart wasn't just misfiring, it was struggling against thresholds that lay hidden until now. Claire's brow furrowed as she exchanged glances with the physician overseeing the ultrasound. "There might be mitigation options if we catch this early," Claire asserted, her mind racing with possible interventions. "What's our next step?" She felt boldness surge within her, a conviction fortified through her experiences from the last hour. She was not just reinforcing her expertise, she was harnessing it to impact real lives. "Cardiac catheterization might reveal further underlying issues," the physician said, and Claire's breath caught. They were barreling towards an invasive procedure, but the stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. Her gut told her this was necessary, yet the doubts swirled again. Did she have the power to sway them toward a risky road? As they prepared Andrew for the next step, Claire reflected on how easily she had once second-guessed her instincts. Every time she had chosen professionalism over personal conviction, she had given sway to those deeper fears, allowing them to dictate her actions. Her fingers trembled for a moment, brushing against Andrew's arm reassuringly. Then a sudden insight struck her. All those years feeling overshadowed, she confined herself to a world where her voice faltered in the presence of others. Yet standing before this man whose fate hung in the balance, she understood that boundaries existed only in the mind of the beholder. "I know this is a lot, but we need to act now." Her voice broke slightly, enough for the team to pause and absorb the weight of her words. She watched them nod, recognition dawning on their faces. They were as eager for resolution as she was. In that electric moment, Claire felt their collective energy shift. No longer were her words met with skepticism. They had transformed into directives woven from the fabric of her own experiences. But as they rallied around Andrew in preparation, a fleeting thought crept in. What if this was another false dawn, a brief flicker before darkness resumed? The question hung heavily, intensified by the tasks ahead that required unwavering faith. "Prepare for immediate catheterization," she said, and it felt like a commitment, one filled with both fear and fierce determination. As they rolled Andrew towards the catheter lab, the wheels of change began turning not just for him, but for her as well. The realization settled in her mind. This was about more than saving Andrew. It was a test of everything she had worked towards. Could she cultivate this newfound assertiveness into something substantial in her professional journey? Each decision molded her future, and the pressure felt daunting yet exhilarating. But as the adrenaline coursed through her veins, a profound question nudged at the edges of her consciousness. Was she ready to accept the transformation at her own core? Whatever transpired next would not just affect Andrew. It was about conquering the inner landscapes she had long avoided, stepping decisively into the life she was meant to lead. As the doors swung open to the next phase of intervention, Claire took a deep breath and stepped further into her own awakening. Would this newfound resolve solidify her trajectory, or fracture the very foundation she had fought to build? Each decision loomed on the horizon, ready to challenge her once again. The catheter lab was a sterile expanse, the bright overhead lights casting an unflattering glare on the polished surfaces. Claire's heart thudded in her chest as they wheeled Andrew in, her thoughts spiraling into the implications of what lay ahead. She had stepped into her leadership role, and with it came the stark reality of responsibility. Did she truly possess what it took to influence the course of someone's life? The team moved with a professional fluidity, preparing the instruments and discussing their roles with mechanical precision. Yet Claire felt a tremor beneath the surface, a swell of emotion that threatened to undo her newfound assertiveness. It was one thing to speak boldly in the ultrasound room. Now the pressure weighed heavily, anchoring her thoughts in an unsettling mix of hope and fear. "Claire, can you step in and guide the positioning?" the head physician asked, his tone casual but urgent. She nodded, forcing her feet to move, every step feeling monumental. Could she trust her instincts? Was the clarity she thought she had achieved merely an illusion? As she positioned herself near the procedure table, she glanced at Andrew. His eyes were filled with a mix of trepidation and trust, looking to her as if she were a lifeline. In that moment, Claire faced a gut-wrenching realization. It wasn't merely a doctor-patient relationship. They were partners in this fight. Their shared fate strained at the seams, the weight of the outcome pressing down on them both. "Let's keep his body in this position for optimal access," she instructed, her voice steadier than she felt. The words flowed from her mouth, a reflection of her evolving authority, and she sensed the team responding to her guidance. They tilted their heads as if the system she had learned to navigate was subtly shifting beneath her influence. But then a chilling thought invaded her mind. What if this decision cost Andrew everything? Doubts slithered through her confidence. What if she was leading them toward a decision riddled with peril? Claire's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the sterile drapes, a stark reminder of the clinical reality overwhelming her emotion. "Prepare for the catheter insertion," she called, gripping the sterile drape as if it were a lifeline. She felt her breathing quicken, and a confrontation stirred within her. Was she truly ready to bear the burdens of leadership? It was terrifying, confronting her own insecurities that had kept her at arm's length for so long. Each heartbeat drummed a relentless rhythm in her ears as they prepped Andrew. She forced her gaze to remain steady, but her mind replayed the moments of indecision that had led her here. Those years spent underestimating herself flickered through her thoughts like a series of blinks. She had been waiting for permission to assert her worth. But in this moment, the entire trajectory of her professional life hung in the balance. And then, like a bolt of clarity, came a realization. The very doubts that threatened to undermine her strength could also fuel her resolve. Standing at the edge of an abyss, she recognized the power hidden in her uncertainty. Did she dare embrace that? Every uncertainty unspooled a path toward ferocity, an awakening that demanded action. "Go ahead," she said, her voice unwavering this time. The words sounded different. They resonated with a fierceness that surprised even her. The team executed the procedure with precision as she guided them, each moment knitting a stronger bond among the group. This was no longer just about Andrew. It was about her evolving identity as a healer, capable, confident, and unapologetically present. As the catheter maneuvered into the complex architecture of Andrew's heart, a flood of mixed emotions surged through her, hope intertwined with fear. Would they uncover a solution, or was this just the beginning of another struggle? She focused on his monitor, the beeping harmonizing with her own heartbeat, a template of life upon which she balanced. The uncertain answer loomed as she prepared to confront the shadows of her past. A test of character and conviction. This moment transcended the clinical. It was a crucible forging her resolve. Yet even as she embraced this shift, she was acutely aware that the battle was far from over. With each pulse of the machine, she felt the stakes tighten. As Andrew's fate remained nebulous, Claire's own awakening intensified, igniting her commitment to not just heal others, but herself. The question lingered. Could she truly exist in this new reality she was carving out for herself, where authority and compassion intertwined? Because just as clarity seemed to settle, the soft beep of an alarm punctured the air, turning her focus sharply and awakening a chilling realization. The time had come to face the ramifications of every decision made thus far. The alarm's sudden intrusion shattered Claire's moment of concentration, each breath she took igniting a flicker of panic. The rhythmic beeping of the monitor transformed from a reassuring pulse into a frantic warning, and simultaneously, her mind raced through the implications of the situation. What had she overlooked? Was Andrew in danger? "Claire, check the pressure," the head physician instructed, piercing through her fog of anxiety. She rushed to Andrew's side, examining the readings on the monitor. The numbers danced before her eyes, and her heart sank as realization crept in. Something was amiss. A spike in pressure that shouldn't be there unnervingly mirrored the turmoil in her chest. Frantically, she assessed the situation, rerouting her scattered thoughts into something solid. This was not just a case of textbook medicine. It was an urgent call to dig deeper, to confront the complexities that lay ahead. The gravity of responsibility loomed over her. Could this be a miscalculation? Had she missed a crucial detail during the procedure? "Prep the echocardiogram," Claire commanded, her voice cutting through the uncertainty. Her confidence felt like a flimsy facade, yet every ounce of her being was determined to push through. She felt the weight of the team's gaze as they respected her authority, and for the first time, the doubt began to lessen. As the staff quickly prepared for the echocardiogram, Claire took a moment to steady herself, exhaling deeply. It was in this silence that vulnerability crept back in. What if her actions had inadvertently threatened Andrew's life? She would not let irrational fear paralyze her. This was a critical test of her leadership, one that could not be avoided. With the echo device ready, she guided the probe over Andrew's heart, her hand steadying the connection between science and humanity. The flicker of images on the screen illuminated the internal chaos in the chamber of Andrew's heart, and there lay something surprising, a small mass, perhaps a clot. Had this been lurking all along, unnoticed? Claire's pulse quickened. The discovery felt monumental. The whispers of countless nights spent doubting her clinical acumen were now drowned out by a renewed voice inside her, one that insisted she had what it took to lead this team and save Andrew. "The mass, there's something here. We need a different approach," she urged, urgency lacing her tone. Instructions were exchanged swiftly, each person in the room adapting to her lead, a testament to how far she had come. Her confidence transformed from a fragile hope into palpable strength. In the ensuing moments, each sharp and electric, Claire could feel the changes in herself. What was once a quiet hesitance morphed into resolve. She thrived in the chaos, dissecting every piece of evidence that emerged. Her experience filled gaps. Each patient was a story that painted a portrait of potential. But Andrew's case had propelled her beyond self-doubt into a realm of decisive action. Pressure mounted as she laid out the plan, a modified approach to address the mass, a direct challenge to the complexity of the situation. "We need to be ready for any complications during the procedure," she stated, focusing her team. The stakes had elevated, and she could feel her instincts sharpening. She was no longer merely participating. She was leading with intent. Just as they prepared to execute her plan, a figure outside the sterile environment crossed her line of sight, a shadow from her past. Dr. Jonathan, a once respected mentor turned rival, stood with an air of skepticism, and Claire's breath caught. His presence forced her to confront the remnants of her insecurities, intertwining them with newfound determination. This was not only a test of Andrew's life, but also a reckoning with her own. How could she navigate the turbulent waters of doubt while standing firm in her competence? In that moment, Claire understood. She was not just saving Andrew. She was carving her path toward a future where she could own her narrative unapologetically. The moment was ripe with possibility. The implications of her actions now stretched beyond the procedure itself. Yet within this whirlwind of introspection, a delicate thread of tension wove deeper. Did she have what it took to confront Dr. Jonathan and secure her position without being undermined? The unspoken challenge lingered, ready to unfold in the chaos that would follow. Claire's focus sharpened as she locked eyes with Dr. Jonathan, the weight of his skeptical gaze igniting a fire within her. Her chest tightened, not out of fear, but from a sense of purpose that surged through her veins. This was a defining moment, an opportunity to forge her identity amid the shadows of doubt. "Let's move," she commanded, shaking off the distraction of Jonathan's presence. The echocardiogram images revealed critical information, and she felt the responsibility of Andrew's life pressing on her shoulders like a boulder. Yet, as fear doused her thoughts, so did clarity arise. Leadership was not just about making decisions, it was about asserting herself with conviction, especially in front of critics who once painted her as inexperienced. With her team in place, she initiated the procedure, guiding them through each step with precise commands. "Monitor the vitals closely. Any fluctuations, I want to know about immediately." The room thrummed with energy, and Claire found herself at the center of it. For the first time, she felt a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling. Anxiety mingled with exhilaration, doubt intertwined with resolve. As she guided the catheters into place, she recalled her early days as a resident, desperately trying to navigate the complexities of medicine while battling the undercurrents of self-doubt. Every small success had once seemed fleeting, but not today. The reality of Andrew's condition demanded everything she had learned. In those pivotal moments of concentration, She realized that her greatest asset was not merely her medical knowledge but her ability to confront the unexpected. Recognizing the small mass in Andrew's heart meant she had leveraged her intuition and experience. It was a reminder that the fear of failure would never cease. It was a matter of embracing it and using it as a platform for growth. "Inject the thrombolytic agent," she instructed, steadying her breath to maintain clarity. She could almost hear Jonathan's quiet disbelief, an echo of self-doubt waiting to rear its head. Would he question her approach? Would he see her as the inexperienced physician he once dismissed? The procedure's tension grew palpable as she directed her team to push forward with focus. Each decision solidified her path forward. She was not going to allow Jonathan's presence to undermine her resolve. This was a proving ground for her abilities. Yet with each heartbeat monitored, with each image pulsing on the screen, there lingered the uncertain thread of her past. Could the foundation she had built hold against the looming specter of Jonathan's judgment? The stakes surged even higher as Andrew's pressures fluctuated dangerously. If something went wrong, would she be able to justify her methods to Jonathan? Not just him, but to her colleagues, to herself. The procedure reached a critical junction, and Claire's heart raced with the weight of her decisions. As they prepared to intervene further, she glanced at Jonathan. "This is the best course of action," she asserted, her voice firm but laced with determination. The moment felt charged, not just with urgency, but with a challenge, not just for Andrew, but for her standing as a physician. Just as the intervention was set to unfold, a slight shift in Andrew's readings brought her scrutiny back to the monitor. Something was wrong. The pressure had spiked again, an alarming sign that threatened everything they had worked toward. Frantically, Claire reassessed the situation, her mind racing to find the hidden variables that might explain the sudden change. "Prepare for possible cardiac arrest," she ordered. The tremor in her voice betrayed her psychic struggle. But that was merely a flicker. Beneath it lay a core of steel. "We need to act now." Could this be the moment she either solidified her role or crumbled under the pressure that loomed larger than ever? The air thick with anticipation, Claire faced the heartache of the unknown. This was no longer solely about Andrew. It was a battle of wills, a quest for redemption and recognition. And as she stood there, the pulse of activity surrounding her, Claire braced for what may come next. Would she rise to meet this challenge, or would the shadows of her past pull her back into an abyss of doubt? Beyond the immediate struggle for Andrew's life lay a question she had yet to confront. What would it take for Claire to trust herself completely and silence the voice of her adversary? The shifting dynamics in the operating room felt electric, a moment suspended in time as Claire stayed grounded amidst chaotic urgency. The incoming specifics danced before her eyes. Elevated pressures, erratic rhythms, each telling a story. Andrew's life, once a mere abstraction, now pulsated in real time like a heartbeat that synchronized with her own racing pulse. Claire inhaled deeply, forcing herself to discard the distractions of self-doubt. This was not the time for contemplation. It was a moment of absolute action. "Administer another dose, Taylor. We need to stabilize him now," Claire instructed, her voice steady. Each command flowed from her like an extension of her resolve. She was not just a cog in the machine. She was the architect of a life-saving plan. As her team deployed the next set of interventions, Claire's internal monologue surged with urgency. What if this didn't work? What if her instincts had led her astray? The specter of failure loomed larger, but even more insidious was Jonathan's potential disappointment. The voice of her adversary whispered insistently. Was it worth the risk? But more than ever, she knew this was a defining moment. She was prepared to confront not just the medical crisis, but the narrative that threatened to define her. She re-engaged with Andrew's vitals. All the clinical studies, all those pre-dawn rotations, had molded her understanding, but now it was the sheer weight of the situation pressing her forward. As Andrew's readings fluctuated dangerously, she felt the indelible tug of fortitude. This wasn't merely technical ability. It was her spirit manifesting in action. "Adjust the pacing," she instructed sharply. The rhythm of the procedure mirrored the racing thoughts clamoring for space in her mind. Each pulse echoed a deeper realization. She was capable of navigating this storm, of leading her team through an unpredictable onslaught. Her instinct, honed through years of building herself up against doubt, gave her the courage to trust her judgment in the critical moments. The currents of fear that threatened to sweep her under began to transform. They became a current of determination. She questioned the very hand that had once doubted her, that seemed to anticipate her missteps. Yet now Claire was redefining this moment through her actions. Each decision she made was a stake driven into the ground, asserting her place in this world. As a clattering of instruments rang out, Claire noticed Jonathan edging closer, scrutinizing her every move. Suddenly, he leaned in, his voice a low growl. "Are you sure about this? What's your contingency plan?" The question hit her squarely, a barbed reminder of her previous uncertainties. But in this moment, rather than crumble, she chose to respond with confidence. "Every intervention is a plan. With every data point, we adapt. We can save him." "I know it," she replied, her eyes unwavering. His challenge became fuel, igniting a fierceness within her that felt liberating. With this proclamation, she initiated the next phase of the procedure, dictating a change in strategy based on instinct and observation. A fleeting glance confirmed the collective resolve among her team, a silent agreement born from shared trust and heightened stakes. They were in this together, and her leadership felt like a balm for both Andrew's ailing heart and her own. In the midst of chaos, Claire allowed herself a moment to internalize this new identity. Each surgery had been a stepping stone, a way to distance herself from self-doubt. But this moment was different. It was an assertion not just of skills, but of who she was becoming. Even through the dark thunderclouds of uncertainty, she found clarity, a guiding vision that encompassed proficiencies she hadn't fully recognized in herself. Yet, just as the atmosphere thickened with hope, a fresh wave of alarms erupted from Andrew's monitors, drowning out her moment of victory. Panic surged through the room as the situation spiraled perilously downward. Claire felt her heart drop into her stomach. The air shifted, an impending realization striking her. What she thought was a surge of confidence was now a terrifying reminder that the battle was far from won. The question loomed larger than before. Could she carry this newfound resolve through the storm ahead? Would she emerge successful, or would the darkness claim her yet again? As Andrew's monitors blared, signaling distress, Claire's pulse quickened. Fear threatened to envelop her, but she took a steadying breath, fueled by the strength she had cultivated over the past hours. This was the moment she had trained for, her resolve crystallized by the urgency swirling around her. Taking control was no longer an aspiration. It was a necessity. "Get ready for compressions. We need to stabilize his heart rate," Claire called out, her voice sharp and authoritative. As the team sprang into action, the cacophony of alarms melded with her focused thoughts. She shoved aside the rising tide of doubt, pushing through the chaotic environment that had once enveloped her in fear and uncertainty. Each command rang out decisively, galvanizing the team to execute swiftly. As they initiated CPR, Claire's mind raced through the underlying complexities of Andrew's condition. This was not just a question of medical protocols, it was a fight for life, her dedication intertwining with a newfound sense of purpose and leadership. With every compression, she drew strength from her own journey. From the hesitant nurse to this moment of command, she stood resolute. No longer was she a passive participant in her life. She was the surgeon of her fate, carving out her identity with confidence and conviction. The shadows of her past felt more like specters than realities, standing at bay as her spirit surged forward. "Monitor the rhythm closely. Prepare the defibrillator," she instructed, eyes fixed on Andrew's vital signs. The team mirrored her unyielding commitment, responding to her leadership as if they had long awaited the opportunity to follow. It was exhilarating, each second pressing her further into her reclaimed empowerment. As the defibrillator readied, Claire remained tuned in to Andrew's physiology. The stakes crescendoed, a palpable tension gripping the room as she braced for the electric surge that could mean life or death. "Clear," she commanded, the word exploding from her lips as she stepped back. The jolt passed through Andrew's body, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to stop. Claire's breaths matched the rhythmic beeping of the monitor, each glance at the screens revealing the slow signs of recovery, the flutter of rhythm returning. Gratitude filled her chest. This was succor in the most profound sense. His vitals are stabilizing, a nurse murmured, recognition spreading like illumination through the room. Claire's eyes locked onto Andrew, and for the first time, she saw beyond the struggle for survival. This man, this moment, was a testament to her journey. It wasn't just about saving him. It was about her achievement in stepping fully into her capabilities. As everyone breathed a tentative sigh of relief, Claire sensed the weight of her accomplishment crystallizing. This was recognition, both from her peers and for herself. Those years spent in the shadows under her father's criticisms melted away, replaced by a definitive self-acceptance bolstered by tangible success. Let's continue monitoring him closely. We need to prepare for an advanced treatment regimen, Claire asserted, her voice calm and authoritative. It was a stark contrast to the uncertainty that had once defined her. This was her role, her duty, her triumph, a newfound leader navigating through the tempest. The team rallied behind her, not just as colleagues, but as allies in an unspoken bond forged through the challenges they faced. Claire took a moment to absorb that transformation, reflecting on how the internal conflicts of her past had now become the building blocks of her present and future professional identity. Weeks later, as she stood before her nursing peers in a presentation, the memory of that night lingered like an echo. Here, when Andrew was at his most vulnerable, I learned the vital importance of trusting oneself in crisis. Every endeavor is not just a medical fix. It is also an invitation to lead with compassion and conviction. Receiving commendations for her leadership and insight during the procedure, the pride that surged within her was well earned. For the first time, she recognized the value of her voice in a realm once dominated by doubt, the belief in herself born from the depths of struggle. The past was no longer a burden. Instead, it served as a foundation. Claire had conquered her inhibitions, emerging not just as an assertive nurse, but as a person committed to her professional growth. The environment she worked in now felt welcoming, a transformative landscape where her contributions were valued. With a smile of assurance, she turned to Andrew, whose recovery journey continued to inspire her. His path was forever intertwined with hers, a reminder of the stakes faced, the vulnerabilities conquered, and the lives saved through resilience. As she exited the hospital that evening, Claire felt empowered an entirely different way than before. This was her achievement, hard-earned and gracefully accepted. The life of a nurse was indeed significant, and she was ready to embrace every moment of it. Now is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and tell us about your reactions in the comments below. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your engagement makes a difference and helps us grow, being part of this journey of personal transformation together.